There is still one cushion down front that's available.
Why are there only 2 clocks?
There are 3.
Oh, there are 3. Well, good morning to all of you. On a perfect day for being inside, so you have no excuse. So our schedule this morning is first, now a period of meditation with some brief instruction. Then we'll take a break. And return for a second short session. Followed by a time when we can raise questions and clarify things about the meditation or the Dharma in general. So first of all, it's important for us every time that we plan to sit down and meditate, whether it's in a group or alone, that we remind ourselves of why we're doing it. So at the very top of our list is the practice of going for refuge to the Buddha, reminding ourselves at the same time to be careful in our daily activities and certainly in our meditation practice not to go for refuge in the confusion of the world, which is so easy to do in times like this when the confusion feels like a high tide. It is still the case that we are each inherently endowed with the fully awakened mind, essentially requiring nothing of us except to recognize that fact. Not to recognize it conceptually, that's so easy, you can read that it's there in any book, but to recognize the actual presence of an awakened intelligence and understand that all of our practice, all of our gatherings, all of the work that we put into a place like this to come and sit together, all of these are meant to be to recognize that awakened mind. Not a single living being lacks it. And yet it is truly rare to recognize it. The great majority of those who recognize that awakened nature do so, in part, by virtue of having felt like we recognized it in another. A great being, someone who we hold as our inspiration for practice. Sometimes we recognize it in that person. When we recognize it, no matter what the source is, we have an opportunity to rejoice. And joy is one of the key elements in all of the formulas through which we accomplish the Dharma. So when we see it in another, it's time to rejoice. And when we recognize it in ourselves, no less, it is time to rejoice. So this morning our practice is the practice of shamata, and we'll begin first with the recitation of the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. The refuge being recognizing the utter lack of confusion in the awakened state, if only conceptually. Recognizing that our relationships with others is cause for joy. And this does not mean that someone else owes us joy, but rather it's like it's one of the ingredients that we carry around with ourselves all the time to attain full awakening, so we want to remind ourselves regularly that joy, along with loving kindness, compassion, and equanimity, are key. We'll start with the recitation of refuge and bodhicitta 3 times together.
Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness.
As we know, there are a myriad of ways to engage in all of the extraordinarily vast teachings on meditation, and even the simple practice of shamata, which requires little more than the ability to just relax. You can do that now if you wish. Relax. And in that relaxation, it's likely it begins with the body. The body relaxed is a support for the mind to relax. Relaxing the mind is the first step, in a way, to the practice of shamata, calm abiding, because you cannot proceed calmly if you are not relaxed, if you are having angst or ill will or confusion of almost any kind. It's very difficult to relax. So therefore, it's especially important to practice it regularly during the day. Take a moment or two and relax at any time. In our practice of shamata, the usual method is to place our awareness on something like our breath, or some object. Could be a statue of the Buddha, it could be a stone. And commonly, back to the breath, we use the breath. The breath is helpful for a couple of reasons. One is when we rest our awareness on the breath, we are resting our awareness on a continuous flow of experience. Breathing is that experience, but within the breath itself, memories arise, opinions arise, distractions, thinking about what you're going to have for lunch or what you're going to do today. We want to train our minds so that when we sit down and relax the body, the mind naturally also settles, and we stay with it, not in the sense of a blank stare of some kind, but we stay with the experience of the body, or some experience in the body, like some pain or some itch or the feeling of our clothing on the skin of our bodies. We don't need to pay attention, for example, to that clothing, but we need to pay attention to all of the experiences which arise in the manner of just recognizing the experience, not as a name like pain or itch or clothing against the skin. We need to pay attention to the actual experience. And if you are using your body in this way for the meditation, then you bring your awareness to the experience, whatever you're using, and you place your awareness on that experience and rest there. Now I want to say one thing about the problems that we have in this sometimes. We often get caught in a kind of vicious circle where we can place our awareness upon some experience for a few moments, and then we're distracted. Commonly, we may be able to begin our meditation in an appropriate and useful way, and then make the mistake of ending the meditation with distractions. We want, and it's important, to end the meditation from within the space of stillness and awareness. In order to do that, one of the most effective methods in the process of training ourselves is to keep the sessions quite short. You might say there's almost no such thing as a session that is too short, especially if it aids bringing the meditation to a close in the context of the meditation rather than the context of a distraction. So if you can engage in this way, place your awareness on an experience. Again, the body is a good starting place. You place your awareness on that experience, settle it, and even if you only settle it for a few seconds, and then intentionally relax and let go of the meditation. While your awareness is on the experience, you may also have the experience that, for example, the physical sensation that you had your awareness on, maybe that sensation disappeared. If you can end the meditation at that point, before you begin to conceptualize the process, that's very good. Repeat the process as often as necessary. And we'll continue with that for a while. So just a reminder as we come up to the end of this session, a couple of key points, and then we'll just take a few minutes and you can try again if you found you were making mistakes, perhaps this could help. We often more or less naturally hold the view that our meditation sessions should be long and free of distraction. Yet we almost never get that result precisely. And part of the support for missing that is that we think that the session must be long. That the longer the session is, the greater the success. So we need to actually more or less eradicate that view. In the practice of shamata, I think it's better to hold the view that success is preeminent. Success is the mind resting on an experience, as we mentioned, for any period of time whatsoever. That the mind rested there on the experience, undistracted. So if you place your awareness on an experience and rest it there, it's highly probable that if you don't carry it beyond a few seconds, that you will succeed. Succeed in having the experience of beginning the session and ending the session without distraction. That experience of beginning and ending without a distraction is perhaps the single most important thing. You could, in a short time, have a dozen successful sessions. Especially likely if you made those sessions quite short. So we'll just sit here now for another couple of minutes, and you can add this to your repertoire of experiences and instructions. we'll dedicate the merit.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
So we'll have a little break now and time to use the restrooms, and we'll come back in a little bit, and during the break do your best to observe silence, and if you can, continue to bring your awareness to your experiences in short sessions, just while you're walking around, sitting down, whatever. It's appropriate at any time. So take your break and we'll ring the bell when it's time to come back.